What's going on, everybody? It's just another day in the kitchen, back with another episode, and in today's video I'll be telling the story behind Travis Scott's iconic Rodeo album cover, as well as the story behind his legendary action figure. Now before we get started, I wanted to give a special shout out to the homie Strain Beats for cooking up the beats for these videos, and while you're here, you might as well drop a like and subscribe, and join our free Discord to stay up to date with the latest and the greatest. And shout out to my chefs holding it down in there. Now the story behind the Rodeo album cover starts off 8 years ago, all the way back in 2015, after Sony Music and Epic Records reached out to Dan Chung, a veteran of figurine making with over 20 years of experience. Now Dan would later go on to mention in an interview that Travis's initial idea was born out of the concept of rewarding fans for purchasing merch, similarly to the way that you would find a toy in a Cracker Jack box. But luckily he was able to convince both Travis and his team to allow him to work on a scale figurine, because that was the area of expertise that he had been working in over 20 years. And it was while spending time with Travis in his mansion in the Hollywood Hills that Dan would also notice just how much of an artist Travis Scott really was. He goes on to mention in the interview that he noticed Travis Scott was more obsessed with becoming a great artist and performer rather than being obsessed with the whole celebrity image. And as a big fan of LaFlame, I'm not surprised to see just how much Travis's art meant to him all the way back in 2015. Now interestingly enough, Dan goes on to mention that he wanted to have Travis Scott's figurine wearing Yeezys, however they weren't able to pull off the collaboration in time. And when you think about it, I wonder if there would have been any consequences for Travis Scott's eventual Nike and Jordan deal had he started collaborating with Adidas all the way back in 2015. And after trusting Dan and his vision, Travis had the following reaction when he first saw the photo.
Oh my jeez. Probably gotta save it for them.
Yeah, wait.
Wait, cover the dog. That's top secret. Really some shit.
Andrew, Travis, that's Andrew. We're not getting out.
Now Travis Scott, being the merch king that he is, decided to do something different with the release of his first album Rodeo, and he actually made this iconic album cover figure available for purchase. Yep, that's right. For those of you that weren't around for the Rodeo drop, you could actually purchase this Travis Scott action figure for a cool retail price of $150. Now looking back in hindsight, I have a very hard time not beating myself up over not having picked up this piece when it first dropped, because if you want to get your hands on it today, it's going to cost you a cool retail north of $1,000, as you guys can see from this most recent sale on StockX. Now when I was doing my research for this video, I did see that there were unfortunately not that many pieces of this one produced, so the crazy retail price definitely makes just a little bit more sense. And although LaFlame has definitely dropped his fair share of dope collectible pieces throughout the years, I can't help but feel like this is the most iconic piece for myself, especially because Rodeo is tied for probably my favorite Travis album. And while we've now seen that it was the work of Dan Chung, the industry veteran who produced this amazing Travis Scott action figure, it was also the combined works of Kevin Amato, the photographer, who ended up taking this now iconic Rodeo album cover. And if his name sounds familiar, that's because it is, as it was only the previous year in 2014 that Kevin worked with Travis to shoot the album cover for his now legendary mixtape Days Before Rodeo, as you guys can see here. It was in an interview with Complex Magazine in 2015 that Kevin would share just how Travis Scott himself had to defend him and fight for him to be the photographer for the Rodeo album. Sony Music apparently had issues with Kevin being the photographer, given that he wasn't used to shooting figurines. However, Travis trusted him and knew exactly what he wanted, and I would say that they came up with an iconic album cover. And it was while I was researching Dan's interview that he also mentioned that Billboard ranked this album cover among the top 25 covers of the year, and Complex rated it the #2 album of the year. And although I think it's safe to say that fans and ragers like myself who were listening to the album back in 2015 knew that Travis Scott was going to be a star someday, I thought it was really cool to see the support that he started to get from other A-list celebrities as he was growing into his role. And while I was doing research for this video, I actually came across these funny photos of LaFlame having gifted comedy legend himself, Seth Rogen, his very own Travis Scott action figure. And although I have no way to reach out to Seth, I'd love to know if he still has it today, because that'd be a pretty cool memento. And although I wasn't able to get my hands on this piece when it first dropped all the way back 8 years ago, I did come across this video review and unboxing that I thought you guys would appreciate. And something really dope that I wanted to point out while reading Dan's interview is that he mentioned part of the way he was able to convince Travis and his team to allow him to build such a large-scale figurine was the fact that they would be able to then mass produce these items and objects for the fans. He goes on to mention that no other artist or rapper has produced or mass-produced such an item for the fans, and not only would it be an iconic piece of art, but also just an iconic piece of merch. And when you think about where Travis Scott was with his level in 2015, given that he wasn't the largest artist, I think it's actually so raw that he was able to actually produce this and put this out for his fans. And something I wanted to point out while taking a look at the retail price here together is that in hindsight, although the retail price of $150 for this figurine was definitely pretty steep, especially for where Travis Scott was as an artist at the time, if you're familiar with just collectibles and being a hobbyist, you know that a lot of these things can get pretty damn pricey. So for example, I just wanted to show you guys how some of these like anime figures can run up to the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So $150 for your very own LaFlame here I think is pretty reasonable. Something else I found dope while reading over Kevin's interview that I felt was worth sharing was he mentioned that the secrecy surrounding this Travis Scott action figure was top notch. Instead of this piece being mailed all over, people were actually flying with it to avoid any kind of leaks, and Travis Scott wanted to keep it under wraps, which I definitely understand. And when speaking about his vision for the Rodeo album art, Kevin goes on to mention that fans shouldn't take the word rodeo too literally. He mentions instead that rodeo is kind of the experience that fans should find once they get lost as they listen to the album. And he goes on to end his interview with the following quote that I thought was pretty cool. He mentions that Travis makes rodeo an emotion. It's Texas, it's Houston, it's a vibe, so when the album drops, you'll definitely feel a rodeo. And although we haven't quite seen a restock of this OG rodeo figure, I had to of course mention the Travis Scott Fortnite event that took place just a couple of years ago. Because it was during this event that we actually got our second iteration of Travis Scott action figures, and if you guys would like a separate video on this one, let me know in the comments because I'd love to cover it as this event was actually pretty damn crazy. And to wrap up this video, I thought it would be dope to mention this Travis Scott tweet where he recently acknowledged someone mentioning that he's been recording songs before every single tour start in different cities and might be coming out with a new album. And LaFlame himself has taken to his Instagram stories to share photos of himself working on new songs before every Utopia show, so fingers crossed we might get some more new music or even a new album. And if you're also down for that and to show me you made it this far in the video, drop some cactus emojis in the comments. Now with that being said, if you're interested in some more Travis Scott Rodeo merch content, I actually filmed what the drop was like just a couple of months ago, so I'll leave that in the description as well. As always guys, thank you so much for cooking with the kitchen and let me know what you guys think about this video. And as always, I want to remind all of you to stay safe out there. Thank you so much for cooking with the kitchen and remember, it's lit straight up and peace.